today's session, we are going to discuss the formulation of microencapsulation. So let us see the formulation. Let us move towards the formulation. Yes, it is very important. Now, how to prepare the microparticles, how to prepare the microspheres, how to prepare the microcapsules. For that purpose, there is a need to understand the formulation aspects of the microparticles. So there are the total four important things are there which are required to formulate the microparticles. That is the core material, very first one. Second one is the coating material. Third one, that is a cross linker, and fourth one, that is a vehicle. Apart from this, there are so many material, so many excipients which are required to formulate the micro encapsulated product. So let us see very first one, that is the core material. Core material, it may be solid or it may be liquid, isn't it? Whatever the core material we are using, generally we are using the API, isn't it? Whatever the API is there, it may be solid in nature or it may be liquid in nature, isn't it? The second category, that is the coating material. Coating material, or you can say it as a, in the case of reservoir system, it is a coating material. In the case of matrix system, it's a just a matrix former, isn't it? So the coating material, it is a polymer, it may be the waxes, it may be the resins, it may be the proteins, or it may be the polysaccharides, isn't it? So these coating materials generally we are using for the preparation of micro encapsulated product. Let us move towards the next category, that is the cross linkers. Certainly, in a certain techniques for the hardening purpose, we require the cross linker or any stimulus. It may be like a change in a pH, or it may be the temperature, or the cross linker which helps to harden the polymeric matrix or the polymeric coat. So generally we are using the cross linkers like a glutaraldehyde, or it's a chemical one. Citric acid also, it's a chemical one. And physical, that is ionic, that is a calcium chloride, isn't it? So these are the cross linkers generally we are using for the preparation of micro encapsulated product. And very last and very important one, that is a vehicle. Here, while preparing the micro encapsulated product, generally we are preparing the suspensions or the emulsions, isn't it, in order to get the micro encapsulated product. So if we want to prepare the suspensions, definitely we require the vehicles, isn't it? And generally it is a aqueous vehicle or the non-aqueous vehicles. If we want to prepare the emulsions, that too also we require the water as a one of the phase, and another phase, that is the oil. So this is about the formulation of the microparticles or micro encapsulated products. So apart from this, we may require certain emulsifiers, certain surfactants, certain stabilizers, then certainly coloring agents, and so on. But these four are very important one in order to manufacture, in order to prepare, in order to formulate the micro encapsulated products or the micro particles. So let us see one by one. Very first one, that is the core material. So core material, as you know that core, it forms the core. So core material, it is said to be the specific material to be coated. So coated, which can be solid or liquid in nature. Solid, it may be the solid drugs. Liquid, it may be the, for example, the volatile oils. If we want to coat, if we want the micro encapsulated product of the volatile oil, generally we are using the liquid material, isn't it? So the core material, it is said to be a specific material to be coated, which can be solid or liquid in nature. The composition of core material can vary, as a liquid core can include dispersed or a dissolved material or both. If the core, it is a liquid in nature, it consists of dispersed or a dissolved material. Means we can disperse the drug into the suitable liquid so as to will get the suspension. It may be the solution in which the drug is being dissolved, or it may be the oil which is enclosed by the polymeric material, isn't it? The solid core consists of active medicaments, diluents, excipients, and the accelerators. Definitely, when we are going for the solid core, it's like a seed which is prepared, which looks like a spear. So the solid core consists of active constituents, diluents, excipients, and accelerators, isn't it? The ability to vary the composition of core material provides the flexibility which allows hike in the desired microcapsule properties. So whatever material we are using over here in the preparation of core material, that allows to get the desired microparticle properties or microsphere properties. Generally, we are using the liquid core material like volatile oils or the vegetable oils, even though it is possible to coat the aqueous liquids also. Then solid core material like the drug or the APIs, active pharmaceutical ingredients, isn't it? The composition of core material includes the drug, diluent, and the stabilizer. That is very important thing related with the core material. Let us move towards the coating material, isn't it? So coating material properties, like it should be compatible with the core material, it should stabilize the core material, it should be inert toward active ingredients, it should provide the controlled release under specific conditions. The coating material can be flexible, brittle, hard, thin, etc. It should have the film forming ability. It should be pliable, testless, and stable in nature, isn't it? These are the ideal properties of the coating material. Generally, we are using the coating materials which are furthermore classified as a proteins and waxes, then the polysaccharides, cellulose derivatives, and the synthetic polymers. So whatever the coating material we are selecting for the design and development of microencapsulated product, it should be compatible with the core material, it should stabilize the core material, it should be inert toward the active ingredient, it should provide or assist the controlled release under specific condition. Whatever the coating material is there, it should be flexible, brittle, hard, or thin. These are the properties with the coating material. Then it should have the good film forming abilities. It should be pliable, testless, and stable. So coating material furthermore divided into the proteins and waxes, polysaccharides, cellulose derivatives, and the synthetic polymers. So composition of coating include polymer, solvent, plasticizer, and coloring agent. So this is about the coating material. These are coating material. Let us see one by one the each coating material and its applications in the design and development of micro encapsulated products. So let us see the coating materials one by one. So very first category which I have shown, that is the proteins and waxes. Here I have made the table, so it becomes very easy for you to understand and compare the physicochemical properties, application and benefits, and limitations of the all the polymers which are widely used in the microencapsulation. So let us see first the gelatin. Gelatin, it is one of the protein type polymer, and which is used for the preparation of microencapsulated product by using co-acervation phase separation technique. It is amphoteric in nature. There are two types of gelatins are available. That is, one is a gelatin A, which is having an isoelectric point, between the pH 7 to 9.4, while gelatin B, it is having a isoelectric point pH 4.8 to 5.50. So it is initially it is going to swell, and then it is going to be dissolved into the water. As you know that the capsules are generally made up of the gelatin. Gelatin, it is at a low pH coacervation with a negatively charged polymers and a high potential of cross-linking emulsifier. It is going to act as a stabilizer, binder, thermoreversible gelling, implantable pulmonary drug delivery, then pH dependent swelling, dissolution and erosion. So in these areas, it is possible to use the gelatin. When we are using the coacervation phase separation technique, generally it is possible to use the certain cross linkers to cross link the gelatin, which forms the whole structure. The main problem when we are using the gelatin, that is the influence of pH and ionic strength on a behavior, then there is a need for preservation against possible prion contamination. So these are the things which needs to be considered for the gelatin. But generally the gelatin, it is a one of the polymer which is having a positive charge, and it is possible to use the gelatin with the other polymers, other anionic polymers in the coacervation phase separation technique. It is used in the simple coacervation phase separation or the complex coacervation phase separation technique. Then the second one, that is a casein. Casein, it is a hydrophilic. It is having a metal binding capacity. It is insoluble in water at its isoelectric point of pH 4.6. It is used to prepare the calcium caseinate, which is having a reversible thermal gelation. Solubility gets increased in presence of coenzyme Q10. The main problem associated with the casein when we are using the casein, that is the anaphylactic reactions. Then the third one, that is the whey protein. It is insoluble at its isoelectric point pH 5.2. It shows the thermal gelation. It is possible to encapsulate the oil. It forms the film going to act as a gas barrier, and whatever formed the film which is having a good tensile strength. The main limitation of the whey protein, that is a thermally reversible gel formation above 70 degrees Celsius. Then it denatures at a high salt concentration and the anaphylactic reactions when we are using the whey protein. Next one, that is the albumin, which is having an isoelectric point of at a 4.7. It is freely soluble in water, and it is having a negative charge at a pH 7.4. Generally, it is used in the pulmonary delivery, and it is possible to prepare the alginate albumin microspheres. The main problem associated when we are using the albumin, there is a chemical degradation, denaturation at a high salt concentration, and enzyme and heat. Then the next one, that is the zein. It is available as a alpha, beta, gamma and delta form. It is having a different molecular weight with a different amphiphilic characteristics with the isoelectric point 6.8, and it is a hydrophobic in nature. Generally, the zein, it is used in the oral control release matrix and reservoir type of drug delivery system. It is brittle in nature. The wall which is formed, it is rigid. It forms a complex with a gelling component to plasticize it. So these are the some of the proteins which are used for the micro encapsulation as a coating material, that is a gelatin, casein, whey protein, albumin and zein. Let us move towards Yes. Remaining proteins and waxes. So the very next one, that is a soya protein. It is partially soluble in water depending on the extraction process at an isoelectric point, that is a 4.5. It is used in the oral control release matrix and a wall. It is going to act as an emulsifier as well as the foaming agent. The main problem is with the soya protein, it's a sensitivity. Then the next one, that is the gluten. It is a water insoluble at isoelectric point 7.5. It is going to act as a wall material. It is having a good elastic and good thermoplastic properties. The main problem associated with the gluten, it is a gluten sensitivity. Then the waxes like a beeswax, carnauba wax, and carnauba wax, these are used to prepare the micro particles. Beeswax, it is having a melting point between 62 to 64 degrees Celsius. HLB, which is required, that is a 12. It is edible. The main benefit, easy to use, smooth surface. It is used in the hot melt extrusion, prolonged release for hydrophilic substances, and it gives the protection from chemical degradation. The main problem associated with the beeswax, that is it's the oxidation. Then the carnauba wax, it is having a melting point of 78 to 85 degrees Celsius. HLB, which is required, that is 12. It is having a good compatibility. In the hot melt extrusion, it is possible to use. It is possible to embed the water soluble component, and also it is possible to mask the test of API. The main problem associated with the carnauba wax, that is the oxidation. Very last one, that is the paraffin. That is a hard and mineral. So it is having a melting point, that is a liquid paraffin, having a melting point ranging between 50 to 61 degrees Celsius. It is possible to embed in water soluble component. Liquid paraffin, generally it is used in the emulsification process, and it is having a sensitivity. So these are the some of the proteins and the waxes which are used for the micro encapsulation, formulation of micro encapsulation. Let us move towards the polysaccharides. There are so many polysaccharides are there which are available in the market, having a natural source, and it is possible to use it as one of the component in the formulation of micro encapsulation. Very first one, that is a chitosan. It is a deacetylated chitin, and that the degree of deacetylation decides the physicochemical properties of the chitosan. Generally, the chitosan, it is soluble in a weak acid. It is having a good mycoadhesive properties. It reacts with a negatively charged surface. It indicates that the chitosan is having a positive charge. Applications, it is having a, originally it is having a antifungal activity, antibacterial. It reduces the low density lipoprotein. It is generally used in as a tissue regenerative. Then the pulmonary drug delivery. Then it is having a inotropic gelation in presence of sodium hydroxide. Then coacervation with the certain anions, as it is having a cationic charge, and it is modified emulsification. So these are the certain applications and benefits of the chitosan. The main problems or limitations with the chitosan, that is a pH dependent, that is, it is insoluble above pH 6.5, means it is having a good solubility at a low pH. Addition of electrolyte precipitate the chitosan solution, and hygroscopic in nature. So these are the some problems associated with the chitosan. When we are using the chitosan as a one of the component coating material in the formulation of the microparticle, generally we are using the glutaraldehyde as a cross-linker. Let us move towards the sodium hyaluronate. It is anionic in nature. It is soluble in the water. It is having a high viscosity at a low concentration. It is widely used to formulate the nasal, vaginal, and ophthalmic microspheres. That is a hyaluronic acid. It is having a negative charge. Okay. Then it's a limitation. It is a very hygroscopic in nature. When heated, it emits the Na2O. Then the starch, which is obtained from the wheat, corn, potato, rice, tapioca. So the starch from different origins, it differs in the particle size and shape. Generally, it is soluble in the hot water after a time of gelatinization. It is used in the spray drying, then the extrusion, molecular inclusion, coacervation with the proteins, then the hydrocolloid forming material. Then it releases the drug via swelling, diffusion, and the erosion. So these are the certain applications and benefits of the starch. The main limitation of starch, it is a hygroscopic in nature. Then the guar gum, it is water soluble. It is a non-ionic. Galactomannan forms a thixotropic solution. It is stable at pH 4 to 10.5. So its application, that is, it will give the good control release. It is possible to prepare the colon targeted drug delivery system. Then it's appetite suppressant, and it is a thermo reversible. Limitations of the guar gum, it needs the preservation, and when the formulation contains the borate, it hinders or it prevents the swelling of the guar gum by complex formation. So these are the some limitations when we are using the guar gum in the formulation. Then locust bean gum, it is a non-ionic. It's a galactomannan, dispersible in a hot water, soluble at a higher temperature. It is used in a controlled release in combination with pseudoplastic gelling with the addition of borate. Solubility not affected by pH or ionic concentration, as it is a non-ionic in nature. The main problem associated with the locust bean gum, that is a low water solubility and hypersensitivity. So these are the certain polysaccharides which are used, like a chitosan. It is one of the important polysaccharide which is widely used to formulate the microencapsulated product. Then the sodium hyaluronate, starch, guar gum, and locust bean gum. Just compare the physicochemical properties and its application and suitability and benefit. So that will give us, along with the limitation, that will give us the how to select the suitable polysaccharide for designing and development of the microencapsulated product. So these are going to act as a coating material, right? So the remaining polysaccharides, like carrageenan, it is a anionic polymer. Then it is having a shear thinning thixotropic gel forming property. There are two types of the carrageenan which are available, that is a lambda and kappa carrageenan. So very first one, it is having a highest anionic charge and high solubility but no gelling. And the second one, it forms an elastic gel with the ions like a potassium, calcium, and it is having a thermo-reversible gel forming property. It releases the drug by erosion, effective against human papilloma virus. So these are the certain benefits of the carrageenan. Then the limitation, acid catalyzes or hydrolyzes, especially at a higher temperature and pH less than 3. Administration of above 2 gram per kilogram orally induces the intestinal ulcer, and it is not biodegradable. So these are the certain limitations of the carrageenan. So we have to suppose to consider all these limitations while selecting the carrageenan as one of the component coating material for the microencapsulation. Then agarose, it is soluble in a hot water. It shows good swelling, as maybe in the microbiology practicals you have used the agarose. It is having a thermo-reversible gelation at a specific 37 degrees Celsius, isn't it? But it is having a poor biodegradability. So this is one of the limitation of the agarose. Then the sodium alginate, It is water soluble. It is a anionic polymer. It is going to form a coacervate with the ions like calcium, barium, then polycations like a chitosan or poly-L-lysine. It is going to act as a disintegrant, binder, and viscosity modifier. Let us move towards its applications and benefits. So sodium alginate, it is having a good swellability. Then it shows the pH dependent swelling, isn't it? Sodium alginate, it gets swell in the alkaline medium at an intestinal pH. It is a non-toxic, non-irritant. Then it is having a low density, capable of floating in a gastric juice. So it is possible to prepare the floating particles or beads by using sodium alginate. The drug, it is being released by the diffusion or erosion, and it forms hydrogels in a situ. The main problem associated with the sodium alginate is that is the pH dependence, that is insoluble in an acidic medium. So it is not going to swell in the stomach. Then heat sensitivity, that is a hydrolysis. Then microbial spoilage on a storage and depolymerization. These are the things which needs to be considered when we are selecting the sodium alginate. Then the acacia, it is water soluble. It forms a clear solution at a pH 4.5, and it is a protective colloid. So it is going to act as an emulsifier. Spray dry encapsulation of flavor of essential oils. 30% solution has relatively low viscosity. It gives a Newtonian flow, permeable coating, and it is going to act as a dietary fiber. The main problem associated with the gum arabic, that is variation dependent on source. Whatever the source is there, depending on that, the physicochemical properties of the gum arabic, it is going to change. Then ionic strength influences the viscosity. So these are the things which needs to be considered while selecting the gum arabic. Then the pectin, it is a negatively charged molecule, that is a low or high methoxylated pectins, which is obtained from apple, citrus peel, or beet. The main benefits and the applications of pectins are gelation depend on the degree of esterification, that is a methoxylated high or low, that will decide its gelation. Then a cation like calcium concentration in solution, which inhibits the or which affects the gelation of pectin at a temperature and pH, and it's in situ gelling. It is going to act as a sustained delivery. It is going to be used as a dietary fiber for the preparation of jams and jellies, and in the drug delivery in a colorectal carcinoma, and it is having a antiviral activity. So this is about the pectin. The main problems associated with the pectin, that is gelling occurs at a low pH, that is 3.5, presence of sugars necessary for gelation. That is the main thing related with the pectin. So we have discussed the polysaccharides like carrageenan, agarose, sodium alginate, gum arabic, and pectin. Let us move towards the remaining polysaccharides like xanthan gum, jalan gum, dextran, and pullulan. So xanthan gum, it is a soluble in a warm water as well as cold water. Its solubility, it is not affected by pH. It's a anionic polyelectrolyte. No gelation at a room temperature. Then cryogelation, it is possible. Stable viscosity over wide range pH. Surface activity, it's an emulsion stabilizer. It is going to give the controlled release. It is possible to target the formulate the colon targeted drug delivery system. The drug, it is being released by swelling, diffusion, or matrix or erosion mechanism. So these are the applications or benefits when we are using the xanthan gum. The main limitation of xanthan gum, that is its hydrolysis and acceptable daily intake of 10 milligram per kg. It is that is a limit, and it contains the cellulase enzyme. So these are the things related to the xanthan gum. Now let us move towards the jalan gum. Jalan gum, it is a anionic polyelectrolyte which is soluble in water. It gives the thermoreversible gelation with the cations, and there is a sol gel transition under physiological condition. It is going to act as a bioadhesive agent, and generally it is used for the nasal administration. The main limitation of the gel and gum, that is it's a poor biodegradability. Very next polymer or the polysaccharide, that is a dextran. It is having a physicochemical properties like it's a neutral polymer. Solubility depends on the degree of polymerization, and it is widely used for colon targeted drug delivery, and it forms a porous particle which can be used for pulmonary delivery of the drug. The main limitation of dextran at a parenteral administration, possible platelet adhesiveness. So these are the things when we are using the dextran for the designing of micro encapsulated product. Then the pullulan, it is a neutral polymer. Underivatized pullulan has a high aqueous solubility. It is going to act as an emulsifier and sustained release preparation. Relatively, it is having a high cost than the all other polysaccharides. So this is about the polysaccharide. We have seen the proteins and waxes. We have discussed the polysaccharides which are used for design and development of the micro encapsulated product. Let us move towards the cellulose derivatives. Very first one, that is the methyl cellulose. It is soluble in the cold water. It is having a T-sol gel, that is 80 degrees Celsius. It is amphiphilic in nature, and it is used as an emulsifier, pseudoplastic solution, pH independent gel formation above 50 degrees Celsius, and varying molecular weight methyl cellulose are available in the market. The main limitation of methyl cellulose, that is complexation with a surface active component, and it is laxative in nature. The very next semi-synthetic derivative of cellulose, that is a carboxymethyl cellulose, that is sodium carboxymethyl cellulose. It is a anionic in nature, dispersible in water, and forms a colloidal solution. Generally, it is used in the injectable thermoreversible gel formulation, and it is having a good mucoadhesive property. The main limitations of carboxymethyl cellulose, that is a microbial instability and the hygroscopicity. Then hydroxypropyl cellulose, it is soluble in a cold water, compatible with the waxes, oils with a T-sol gel 55 degrees Celsius. The main advantages and benefits of the hydroxypropyl cellulose, it is having a high surface activity, and it's a good film former. Generally, it is incompatible with the alkaline substances, substituted phenol derivatives, and anionic polymers, which increases the viscosity of the solution. Then HPMC, it is water soluble. It is non-ionic in nature. It is going to form the reversible thermal gelation. Then it is going to act as a emulsifier, and it is having a good film forming ability. The main limitation, no complex with the metallic salts or the ionic organics. Then ethyl cellulose, it is water insoluble. It is widely used for the hydrophobic coating material. It is having a good film forming ability, used in the membrane controlled diffusion drug delivery systems to get the modified release. Then it is used in a floating and gastro-retentive system. The main problem associated with the ethyl cellulose, that is the residues of the organic solvents which are present in the formulation or present in the ethyl cellulose. Then cellulose acetate butyrate, it is again insoluble in water, soluble in the acetone water blends. It is used for the to give the semi-permeable coat, widely used for the extent to get the extended release of the systems like a diffusion or a matrix or erosion. And the limitation is presence of organic solvent residual. So these are the certain cellulose derivatives which are used as a coating material in the design and development of micro encapsulated product like methyl cellulose, carboxymethyl cellulose, hydroxypropyl cellulose, hydroxypropyl methyl cellulose, ethyl cellulose, and cellulose acetate butyrate. Next coating material, that is the synthetic polymers. So we have discussed the proteins and waxes. we have discussed the cellulose derivatives, we have discussed the polysaccharides. Now let us discuss the synthetic polymers which are used in the as a coating material in the micro encapsulation. The very first one, PLA, polylactic acid. Polylactic acid, it is insoluble in water, and the main thing, it is a biodegradable over a 12 to 24 months. So the applications and benefits, it's a good biodegradability, then prolonged release. When it is given by the drug, it is given by intramuscular or subcutaneous injection. It is widely used in the implants and oral solid dispersion. The main limitation or the disadvantage of PLA, polylactic acid, that is digestive tract influences the degradation. Parenteral administration is favorable. Initial burst release may occur. So when the drug it is formulated with the PLA, there might be chances of initial burst release. The polylactic acid glycolic acid copolymer, that is a PLGA. Again, the PLGA, it is insoluble in water. It's a lactic acid glycolic acid, as the ratio influences the degradability, isn't it? And also the gel forming ability. It is widely used in the injectable or implantable systems, in the microparticles or gel for human and veterinary use. It gives a pH responsive or a non-pH responsive polymer degradation, and is also used in the bone tissue engineering. Degrades into byproducts that can induce the inflammation. So whatever the degradation products are there of a PLGA, there might be chances of inflammation. That is the main limitation of the PLGA copolymer, polylactic acid glycolic acid copolymer. Then the carbapol. Carbapol, it's a neutralization with alkaline chemicals for gelling. So when we are combining the carbapol with the any alkali, there is a formation of a good gel. It is having a good bioadhesive property. It is used in the targeted delivery for the intranasal route, isn't it? The main limitation of the carbapol, neutralization at preparation, and the preservative is required when we are using the carbapol. Then polymethacrylates. Polymethacrylates, they are soluble in the organic solvent. Most of them are miscible with the water. It gives the pH dependent solubility. Permeability, gastric or enteric targeted delivery is possible. The water insolubility, it is a main problem or main limitation of the polymethacrylates. Then poly and isopropyl acrylamide, it is having a LCST having a melting point of 35 to 40 degrees Celsius. It is a thermoresponsive polymer and non-biodegradable. It is not going to be degraded. Then polyethylene glycols, these are the liquid or solid grades depending on their molecular weight. So as you know, if the polyethylene glycol 400, it is a liquid. If it is a 2000, it is a solid in nature. So it is used as a plasticizer in wall of compressible microcapsules. Oral insulin drug delivery is possible, and cell delivery is also possible. It is also not biodegradable in nature, isn't it? Last one, FDKP, it is having a high solubility at about 6 pH, no biological activity. Its application, self-assembled highly porous microparticles. It is used as a carrier. It is again not biodegradable and excreted via urine. So this is about the synthetic polymers. Let us move towards the crosslinkers. Crosslinkers are the agents which helps to crosslink the polymeric chain, and thereby it is possible to modify the properties of polymers. Generally, in all microencapsulation technology, crosslinkers are not required. There are a few methods are there in which for hardening purpose the crosslinker is required. That's why I have explored here the crosslinkers in the formulation. So the cross-linking is a process of forming tri-dimensional network where the polymer chains may be linked by covalent or non-covalent bond, that is known as the cross-linker. As you know that the polymers may be the cationic in nature or anionic in nature. Depending on that, it comprises the certain groups. There are certain chemicals are there, they are having the ability to form the covalent or the non-covalent bonds with these molecules, these groups, and thereby there is a formation of a tri-dimensional network, isn't it? That is known as the cross-linkers, and that is known as the cross-linking, and which will help to improve the mechanical and barrier properties of the polymers. So when we are using the cross-linking agent for the hardening purpose, automatically the some physicochemical properties of the polymers are going to change due to cross-linking of the polymeric chain, and that allows us to modify the drug release from the formulation. Here in the microencapsulation, generally we are using the cross-linker for the hardening purpose. So whatever the cross-linkers are there, they are from the chemical category, and it should have the low toxicity, isn't it? Generally, the cross-linkers are classified into the chemical cross-linkers and the physical cross-linkers. For example, chemical cross-linkers like guanidine, formaldehyde or glutaraldehyde, citric acid. Physical cross-linkers like calcium chloride or sodium tripolyphosphate. There are so many cross-linkers are there which are having the capability to hard the polymer to get the rigid structure of the polymer, isn't it? And there are so many compounds are there which are widely used as a cross-linker, but here I have cited only the few examples. Let us see the details of the chemical cross-linker. So guanidine, it is a chemical cross-linker. It is present in the fruit of Gardenia jasminoids. So this is a structure of the guanidine, and it is the excellent natural cross-linker for the proteins, collagen, gelatin, and the chitosan. It is less toxic than the other cross-linkers like the glutaraldehyde or the formaldehyde. Guanidine's main disadvantage is the formation of a dark blue color to the product. It is used as a regulating agent for the drug delivery. So this is about the guanidine. Let us move towards the glutaraldehyde. So glutaraldehyde, this is the structure of the glutaraldehyde, and it is having a capacity to form the crosslink with the various polysaccharide. It is a linear 5-carbon dialdehyde, is the clear to colorless to pale yellow straw colored solution, which is a oily liquid, and that is soluble in the proportions in a water, alcohol, as well as the organic solvent. So it is having a capacity, it gets dissolved or solubilized into the water, then the alcohol, as well as the organic solvent. It is a oily liquid. It forms the crosslinks with the protein side chains or with the amino groups present in the polysaccharides. For a protein side chains, like say take an example of a gelatin, polysaccharides like a chitosan. So it is going to form the crosslinks with the in the polymers like gelatin as well as the chitosan. But it is having a main problem, that is its toxicity. So while using the glutaraldehyde, we have to supposed to take utmost care to wash the prepared microparticles. It is used as a cross-linkers for the proteins, polysaccharides, and polyvinyl alcohol. So this is about the glutaraldehyde. Let us move towards the physical cross-linkers. Here, for the physical cross-linking, generally we are using the divalent cations, then we are using the polycarboxylic acids or tripolyphosphates. So let us see the mechanism. That is the very first one, which is related with the calcium chloride. There is an ionic cross-linking between the polyuronates, which are present in the pectin, and the divalent cation like a calcium, CaCl2. So calcium chloride, from the calcium chloride, calcium, it is having it's a divalent cation, and it is having a ability to form ionic crosslinks with the polyuronates which are present in the pectin, as well as it is going to crosslink, form the ionic crosslinks in the case of sodium alginate also. Then the second, that is a ionic interactions between the polycarboxylic acid like oxalic acid and amino groups which are present in the chitosan and the proteins. So oxalic acid, it is also having a capacity to form the ionic interactions with the amino groups present in the chitosan, or as well as the proteins like a gelatin. Here again, the citric acid is also having the ability to form the ionic interactions with the chitosans. Then the ionic interactions between a tripolyphosphate and the chitosan. This is yet another example of the physical cross-linking. Then cross-linking by the hydrophobic interactions and hydrogen bonds between the polyphenols and the polysaccharide. This is yet another physical cross-linking mechanism by which we can cross-link the polymer. Also, one more is there, that is the formation of a polyelectrolyte complex. Suppose that we have selected the two polymers, one which is anionic in nature, one which is a cationic in nature. Cationic polymer, for example, chitosan; anionic polymer, for example, alginate. They are having the ability to form the polyelectrolyte complex, and thereby there is a hardening of the polymer. So these are the examples or the mechanisms of the physical cross-linking. Generally, to get the physical cross-links, we are using the calcium chloride, oxalic acid, citric acid, then tripolyphosphates, or we are using the concepts related with the hydrophobic interactions or the hydrogen bonding between the polyphenols and polysaccharides, and polyelectrolyte complexes between the anionic and cationic polymer. So this is about the physical cross-linkers. Let us move towards the vehicles. So let us see the vehicles. Yes. For the preparation of microencapsulated product, generally we are using the aqueous vehicles or the non-aqueous vehicles to get the suspensions, emulsions of the core material or the coating material. Here we are using the vehicles as a, say for example, aqueous vehicle. From the non-aqueous category, generally we are using the vegetable oils, we are using the organic solvents or the mineral oils. So herewith we have finished the formulation of the microencapsulation. So in the formulation, we are using the core material, coating material, cross-linkers if required, and the vehicles. These four things should be considered for the design and development of microencapsulated product. So here we have finished the formulation part of the microencapsulation.